I've seen home sales in Central Alberta almost fall apart over one missing document, and most homeowners don't even know where to find it. It's called a real property report or an RPR. If you don't have one, the conversation usually turns to something called title insurance. Now, here's the problem. Most people don't actually understand the difference between those two things. So they guess, and guessing in real estate can get expensive. Around here, we believe in something simple. Knowledge is your superpower. So in this video, I'm going to show you what a real property report actually is, what municipal compliance really means, and when title insurance makes sense, and why timing sometimes forces the decision. And later in the video, I'll also walk you through the 5 most common real property report problems we see right here in Central Alberta. Let's start with the real property report. In Alberta, an RPR is a legal document prepared by a registered Alberta land surveyor. Think of it as a legal snapshot of your property. It shows exactly where everything sits on your land relative to your property lines. Things like the house, garages, sheds, deck, fences, and even things like air conditioning. I'm showing the legal description of the property, the exact dimensions of the property boundaries, the location of all visible improvements and easements or utility rights of way, and whether anything crosses into neighboring land. That's a lot. So in simple terms, it shows whether everything on your property is sitting where it's supposed to. But the survey itself is only part of the story. Most RPRs need something called municipal compliance. That means the city, county, town, whatever, reviews the report to confirm that structures meet local bylaws. Things like setback distances, zoning regulations, and building placement. If everything meets the rules, the municipality will provide proof of compliance. Sometimes that comes as a compliance stamp directly on the RPR, but more commonly today, it may come as a separate letter of compliance from the municipality. Either way, it confirms that the improvements on the property appear to comply with local bylaws at the time when the report was reviewed. Now, here's something important. Real property reports don't technically expire, but they are a snapshot in time. If you build something after a survey was completed, the report may no longer reflect the property accurately. Common examples are when someone builds a new deck, adds an attached garage, installs a shed, or replaces or moves fences. Any of those can change, and if they do, they can require an updated survey. Which is why we always tell sellers something very simple. If you're ever thinking about selling in the next year, whatever it is, find your RPR now. Regardless of whether you plan to provide the real property report with compliance, use an existing RPR with title insurance, or rely entirely on title insurance, every seller should try to locate their RPR as early as possible. Ideally, you find it from where you originally purchased the property. It's going to be in your legal document or your file or book that you received from your lawyer. Doing that early, before the home even hits the market, can save lots of time and avoid surprises later in the transaction. Now, once people understand how RPRs work, the next question almost always becomes, what happens if you don't have one? That's where title insurance enters the conversation. Title insurance is a one-time insurance policy that protects homeowners and lenders from certain title and property-related risks. It protects against things like title fraud, registration issues during closing, certain permit issues, and some encroachments that may be delivered later. It protects against things like fraud, registration during closing, and certain permit issues, and some encroachments that may be discovered later. The key to understanding is this. A real property report helps identify problems before closing. Title insurance provides financial protection if a problem is discovered later. Another way to think about it is this. An RPR shows you the problem before you buy. Title insurance protects you financially if the problem shows up later. Let me also explain how this is often handled in the purchase contract. You'll often see wording in an Alberta purchase agreement that says something like, the seller will provide an existing RPR dated a certain date, which does not reflect the current improvements on the property. Instead of updating a real property report, the seller will contribute a certain amount toward the cost of title insurance policy for the benefit of the buyer and the buyer's lender. That policy is actually secured by the buyer's lawyer during the closing process. So technically, the buyer's lawyer purchases the policy, but the funds usually come from the seller's side of the transaction through the sale proceeds. And in that situation, an updated real property report is not provided. Title insurance is often used for a couple of practical reasons. Number one, it's timing. Surveys take time. Municipal plans take time. If a property is closing in 3 weeks and a new survey might take 6 or 8, there simply isn't enough time to get it done. In those cases, title insurance allows the transaction to move forward confidently. But there's another situation where title insurance is sometimes used. And I'm not talking about anyone being lazy. Sometimes the seller already has an existing RPR, but maybe a small improvement was made after the survey. Example would be a deck maybe extended a foot, it was properly permitted, and everyone involved knows it's still within the property setback requirements. In situations like that, ordering a brand new RPR may not always be necessary. Instead, parties may agree to rely on title insurance rather than spending the extra cost on a new survey. Okay, let me add one quick perspective for buyers as well. If you're buying a property and the seller is offering title insurance instead of providing an RPR, that doesn't automatically mean there's a problem. But it does mean you need to understand what you're agreeing to. An RPR shows you the physical layout of the property before closing. Title insurance protects you financially if something shows up later. So as a buyer, the real question becomes this. Are you comfortable relying on insurance, or would you prefer to see the survey first? Sometimes buyers are perfectly comfortable with title insurance. Other times they may ask the seller to update the RPR. There isn't always a single right answer. What matters is understanding the difference so you can make an informed decision. Let me give you a real situation I recently dealt with. I represented a buyer where the seller had never completed an RPR, never bought one, never had one done. The transaction was closing quite quick. There simply wasn't enough time to hire a survey, complete the survey, submit it to the municipality, and receive compliance before closing. So the seller all they could provide was title insurance. Ideally, we would like to have reviewed it, the current RPR, but the timeline made that impossible. So the solution became title insurance. That's a perfect example how timing sometimes drives that decision. Even when title insurance is being used, I still like to review any existing RPR if it exists, because it gives you a great visual starting point. We can see things, like if the garage is already shown, whether the fence is in place, and whether the decks are in place, all that, we can actually see that before we close. If the property hasn't changed since the last survey and there's proof of municipal compliance, a new RPR may not be necessary. But if something major was built after the survey, that's when we want to look a little bit closer. Another thing people don't always realize is that municipalities can handle compliance a little bit differently. Here in Central Alberta, we deal with several different municipalities. We got Red Deer, we got Sylvan Lake, we got Innisfail, Black Falls, Lacombe, lots of different municipalities. And each municipality may interpret certain improvements a little bit differently. Some may be stricter about structures near property lines. Others focus more on encroachments onto municipal land or utility easements. That's why understanding the local rules can be important when reviewing real property reports. One small issue with one municipality may not be treated the same way somewhere else. And that's where local expertise really helps. Now, let me share a few of the most common issues we see when reviewing RPRs right here in Central Alberta. These don't happen every day, but they do happen often enough that it's worth understanding them before you sell or buy a property. Number one is decks built after the last survey. Someone builds a new deck after the original survey is completed, and the deck never makes it onto an updated RPR, or a new RPR was never completed. That means the report is no longer accurate snapshot of the property. Number 2 is detached garage added later. If a detached garage was built after the original survey, we usually want to see that the structure was updated right to confirm the setback distances from their property lines. At minimum, you'd like to see at least the permits that were pulled for that garage, but that's a video all in of its own. Number 3 is fences crossing property lines. Except over the years, or just built in the wrong spot. Often it's minor, but it's still something that should be identified. Number 4 is structures near utility right-of-ways. Many properties have utility easements running through the yard. A community like Red Deer, a lot of the time, the utilities are in the back lane. If a deck, shed, or fence sits inside that area, it can create issues if the utility company ever needs access. And that would be at the cost of that landowner. A quick note about sheds, because this does come up a bit. According to the manual standard practice for Alberta land surveyors, specifically Part D, Section 8.5, detached accessory buildings such as sheds, pergolas, gazebos generally do not need to be shown on a real property report if they are under 10 square meters or about 108 square feet. And they have to be movable, not permanent. So if you have a small movable shed in the yard, it may not appear on the report. So that is often completely normal. Number 5 is older RPRs that no longer reflect the property. Sometimes the report itself is fine, but the property has changed over the years. New sheds, new fences, new landscaping features. Remember, the real property report is a snapshot of the property the day it was surveyed. If the property changes, the snapshot may need to be updated. Okay, so here's the takeaway. A real property report helps us understand the property before closing. Title insurance protects you financially after closing. Both can be useful tools. The key is making the decision with good information, not guessing. As you know, around here, we believe in something very simple. Knowledge is your superpower. If you're thinking about selling your home in Central Alberta and you're not sure about your RPR, reach out. We're happy to take a look before you ever hit the market. Sometimes a quick conversation today can prevent a lot of stress and a lot of lost cash later. And if you found this helpful, please subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you back. We share videos like this all the time to help make better real estate decisions.